So as you know, the theme for today is Future Feuds Commerce, and I would say if we were to double click on that, the theme for this next portion is going to be all about the possibilities for growth. So yesterday we had, we heard from you guys that we wanted to hear more about RMNs and retail media networks. Yesterday we had Leora Kelman from BCG, Boston Consulting Group, in that room talking about the RMNs as a whole and just kind of like the opportunities available. And today we're going to talk a little bit with the practitioners and the leaders in the space about what they're doing. And so CVS and Macy's are doing some very interesting things, and I'm delighted to bring their thought leadership to the stage. There's been a minor change in that the amazing Christina Gustafson was supposed to be moderating the session. Unfortunately, she's sick, so you're stuck with me. So I'm going to call up our two speakers. It's Parvinder Darwal from CVS Media Exchange and Michael Kranz from Macy's Media Network. Come on up. Thank you so much for being here. I'm excited to have you guys. I wanted to start off the conversation with a question about organizational structure, because what I've seen is that as you RMNs have been developing, they're all pretty unique. So a couple years ago, we were talking about it like it was the Wild West of media, right? So I'm going to start with you, Michael. Where in the organization does retail media sit at Macy's, and how does the approach tie into Macy's overall strategy?
It's a great question, and one I get a lot, and Parvs and I were just talking about it. So at Macy's, Macy's Media Network sits inside the Customer and Digital Org, which is the organization that is driving digital sales and profit for the company. And within Customer and Digital, I have colleagues that run personalization, loyalty, CRM, site merchandising. So it's nice to be tucked inside of that organization because I have a direct line into what's happening in all of those parts of the business.
Who is it that you reported to? Was it the CMO?
The Chief Digital and Customer Officer, yes.
And so Parvs, how about you at CVS? How has the internal organization evolved to ensure retail media is contributing to the larger business strategy and objectives and all that?
Yeah, and you know, we're more than just retail at CVS Health. So you know, we have an insurance business, we have a PBM business, and then obviously the retail business as well. The retail media network specifically reports into the president of retail. So our entire 9,000 store locations. So I report up into the president of retail there. I think it's less about sort of the reporting structure that we should be kind of focusing on. I think it's more around, you know, what is the connectivity that we can actually bring as retail media to organizations. And it's about connectivity of bringing together, let's say, loyalty and merchandising and marketing, as well as retail media, and bringing all of those constituents together, because that's actually the driving force that retail media has really changed the game around, is the connectivity within these broader organizations through the lens of the consumer that drives value, but also performance for the brands that we work with, and ultimately re-engages consumers and helps them discover new products within our retail and digital environments.
That dovetails really nicely into my next question then about like, can you give an example of cross-functional collaboration that, you know, helped create a better campaign for shoppers?
Yeah, we've been working really. I've been at CVS for about 2.5 years now. I worked at another retail media network at a large retail business before I got here. One of the things that that can act as a core differentiator for our business is that level of connectivity. And so we built a program around about been between sort of 6 and 9 months ago called One Heart. And One Heart is a program that says, okay, as we look at tentpole events, as we look at ways in which we engage those consumers through those tentpole events, how do we truly bring together all of the assets? So merchandising, front store marketing, retail media, with the consumer at the center of what we do. We have an event that happens twice a year. It's a beauty event. It's called Epic Beauty. It happens in the fall and it happens in the spring. We just finished our spring event, and wrapping up results on that. But that's a really good example of how do we bring together all of the constituents to drive value back into the organization. And we're seeing a really strong uplift. And then you've got to also think about the different assets and channels that we have, right? So for example, one of the channels that rolls up into my P&L is the in-store monetization. So everything that we do around sort of screens or audio or at-shelf promotion that happens within the store environment, that rolls up into me as well. And we just published a case study actually this morning, which highlights the trend caps that we have. So trend caps are end caps with a digital screen. We're seeing when those trend caps are live in stores, and we do control versus exposed testing with those particular trend caps, we see an uplift, and we've seen an uplift of over 6%. It's around about 6.4% uplift in sales when those trend caps are live, and more importantly, we're seeing new to brand buyers when those trend caps are live of 60+%. So we've got channel, we've got the way in which we pull together the different constituents of a business, like merchandising and front store. That's the power and the flywheel that we can create around the consumer, and that's what really differentiates retail media, and that's what makes it a really exciting time for our business and what we're trying to do within some large old school retailers like CVS.
Yeah,
probably shouldn't have said that, but
So Macy's has come a long way on this front as well, which has been helpful when you're working with brand partners on full funnel opportunities. So can you share a little example of how a cross-functional collaboration at Macy's has brought to bear like a successful full funnel
I think we're in the
campaign?
same part of the journey where everything's coming together, this connectivity, working with merchandising, site merchandising, loyalty teams, personalization. For us, we're doing a lot more and more work with our marketing and content teams, which now sits under one leader, content and marketing. So the process has gotten much more simplified, but I've been about Macy's for about 1.5 years, so it's taken a little time to build those relationships. And so we're, I think, in early days of piloting some of those more, I would say, cross-Macy's, cross-functional, full funnel sort of programs. So a couple examples would be we're partnering more closely with our content teams on CRM email programs. So creating brand dedicated emails for our advertisers, native homepage integrations, which is run by our content teams. And luckily I've got some great partners on that side who are willing to collaborate. And then we have a new social and influencer leader in the marketing organization, and we're starting to partner around how we can take creator content that's being generated by her team that's really focused on a brand, one of our advertisers, and how we can amplify that through a Macy's Media Network media activation. So really amplifying, really pushing out that message when we have a great piece of creator content. So for us, that's becoming a bigger part of our media activation, our product capabilities, because for Macy's, particularly in the apparel side, and I think in some beauty categories, it's more of an emotional, you need to drive that inspiration, that discovery, that emotional connection before that conversion can happen. So we're really nurturing the customer through a lot of different touch points. And then when Parv's talked about tentpoles, we're really starting to lean into key Macy's tentpoles. We have, of course, the Thanksgiving Day Parade. We have the fireworks happening soon. And then we have our flower show that happens. So for instance, in the flower show, we had YSL Fragrance sponsoring, which came through our corporate partnerships team, but it involved really all of my colleagues cross-functionally and did dovetail into an MMN activation. So we're really trying to create that full funnel approach. And I think in retail media, the retail media network, I think, is often the connector. They're often, they're sort of the go-to because there's often not that person in an organization who's there to connect all the parts and pieces and people in an organization to make that come to life. So I think there's been a lot of learnings from that, but that's the direction that we're headed.
Can you talk a little bit about those learnings or challenges that you faced along the way?
I think it's just getting goal alignment. Everyone's trying to achieve something different, but ultimately what we're trying to do is, like Parb said, put the customer at the center and engage in storytelling. And thinking about how do we tell that brand or product story in a holistic way, in a way that's where all the parts and pieces are symbiotically working together, so that there's no duplication, that there's alignment in the communication strategy. So I think it's not easy. You can't automate that work. It really just requires the human touch and coordination and collaboration with cross-functional partners.
That's great. That actually just pulls back to our theme for yesterday, which is all about balancing automation and the human touch. So thank you for that.
Yeah, can I just add on that
please.
real quickly, because I think it's a really important point when I think the last count, there was something like 260 retail media networks, right? Like, there's just a lot of retail media networks. Like, everybody's got a retail media network. And, setting one of these things up is incredibly difficult. And one of the main reasons is that trying to get that internal advocacy for what it is that you are doing is always the challenge, because you're doing something in a space that is not native to the retail business. It's a little different. It's different because it sits horizontally across multiple different areas of the business and actually different parts of the organization. It's different because of the way in which you're actually a revenue and a profit center. You're a revenue driver and a profit center versus, being a sort of a core cost center. It's different because of the way in which you're utilizing the assets of the business, right? Whether it's in-store assets or digital assets. So I think that advocacy and building that advocacy has been, one of the biggest challenges. And that's why you're going to see, whilst you've got these 260 retail media networks, you are going to see a real long tail. And you're going to see a lot of people go, you know what, this just isn't for me.
Yeah.
Because of it's complex, it requires a different stack in terms of the data and the tech that is required. It requires a different way of thinking about the business. And we have the joy of building this business. Sort of, we kind of do our little thing over here, and we build a lot of stuff and we break a lot of stuff, and I think that kind of playground is not necessarily available for everybody because of the pressures that are involved on some retail in order to deliver performance. And retail media is often stood up as being, hey, retail media, like you're gonna fill the gap. It doesn't work like that. It's not an overnight problem that retail media can solve, but that's why it's really important to think about the business holistically, to think about how it adds value to the consumer, to think about how it adds value to the enterprise, above and beyond the margins, right? Like, so that's, it's really, like Mike and I were talking about that just before we got on stage. It's a very different way of thinking about how you build one of these things versus just going, hey, we've got a retail business, brilliant, let's bolt a retail media network onto it. It's not that. It's not.
And when there's such a focus on the customer, we're probably the same. There's just this very acute attention paid to the customer for good reason. So we're very cautious that anything we do in the retail media space is additive to the customer experience, that it's not a detractor. So we have to, anything new that we endeavor to launch or accomplish is scrutinized, but for good reason.
Yeah. Just speaking of the opportunities, I'm curious about, I know you just went to Cannes, Parm. Tell us a little bit about the offerings that you announced there.
Yeah, we don't talk about the fact that we went to Cannes, just given that we're a US retailer, but we did go. It's an incredibly vibrant community there, and I think that, the big takeaway for me at Cannes, if I start there, is there was a lot of talk about AI and what's happening in that realm. There was a lot of talk around commerce media and retail media as well, which is really, really bright to see. What we announced at Cannes last week was a partnership with Reddit, which is a first of its kind in the retail media space. So where we really see the puck moving, to use an American analogy, when I'm not really American, but where we see the puck moving is there's a couple of things that are happening. We've been working on connecting our internal businesses and everything that we do around our assets, in-store, digital, and so on. So that is now in a really, really good place from our business perspective. We've got an incredible stack that allows us to be much more nimble in how we build collaborations and co-create product. So that the next layer that I believe is where retail media will go, just given a few things. We have a relationship with the consumer, and we have that en masse. We have an understanding of the way in which that consumer transacts. We have everything in between. So we are very well positioned to say, okay, consumers don't just visit CVS. They don't just engage with us on our sites or just come into our stores. We have a lot of them. We have 5 million consumers that come through our doors every single day, but they're everywhere else. They're on Instagram. They're on, CNN. They're on New York Times, but they're also on Reddit. And what we're saying is that the next layer of retail media is about how do we utilize our assets to connect with consumers on other platforms. It's collaborating and co-creating together to identify consumers when they're in the Reddit environments, when they're in those communities talking about health and wellness challenges that they have. How do we add to that conversation with our brand voice to bring them back into the CVS environment? And you're going to see more of this, right? Like, this is a real big push for us, that we will do more collaborations, more co-creations with other partners, whether it's someone in the CTV space or somebody else in the social space. That's how we see the pieces moving, and more importantly, that's the connectivity that retail media provides, actually not just for the consumer within retail. It actually provides that connectivity across the entire advertising ecosystem, because that end-to-end view that we have, nobody has that like retail does, like Michael does, like CVS does.
One more question for you is that you have both, you have a very diverse array of different offerings, right? As far as products are concerned, you have the pharmacy side, you have the front of store. What are the similarities and what are the differences that you're offering insofar as the full funnel offerings for?
When we talk about full funnel, and a lot, you're going to hear this more and more from retail media, because retail media is saying, okay, if we really want to go after the market and we really want to grow our business, then we have to go after the big branded dollars. If they want big branded dollars, you've got to show that you're a full funnel solution. Okay, I got it, right? Like, I've been doing this for like 25 years, but the differentiator is the most important thing in the first instance. The differentiator is that we have a ton of consumers who engage with our brands. We understand those consumers, and more importantly, we see the way in which those consumers transact. Our differentiator as retail media is that we understand that end to end. So let's not lose sight of that, okay? So when brands come to us and they say, hey, we want full funnel solutions, we're happy to talk to them about full funnel solutions, but it's really depending on trying to understand what the KPIs are. Ultimately, brands are trying to drive increased value or more products, right? Like, they're trying to drive a sales lift, or they're trying to drive an incrementality. I was listening to a session earlier, we were talking about incrementality. Whatever the metric is, right, like, there are full funnel solutions that are in order to drive that, right? Like, whether that's screens in store or that's social networks, or just utilizing sponsored products on our own site. We're just thinking about all of those suites of products, but more importantly, how they come together to drive the KPI for the brand.
And Michael, I'll turn the question over to you. Like, what part of the funnel does Macy's see the most opportunity?
Yeah, I think the first thing we're doing is we're constantly evolving and enhancing our lower funnel ad products, our on-site, increasing relevancy of sponsored products, launching new display and display commerce ad products on our site. So it's not really the sexy stuff, but it's the stuff that pays the bills. So we do a lot of that work. We're constantly, we work with our product teams and our technology teams to just constantly get better and better and better at the lower funnel. We have a full funnel offering. I think, like Parv said, I think there's so much conversation about the full funnel offering, and we're going into year 5, and I'm happy to say we have all of those offerings, partnerships with all the social platforms, a partnership with the trade desk. You can buy open web advertising, either through the trade desk or DV360. There's all the things that you can do. I think the challenge comes down to the KPI, because I think our advertising base is so accustomed to receiving, to having that performance KPI, the ROAS or the incremental sales are metrics. And so you bring them an upper funnel opportunity, and they test and learn. And yes, we can measure on most of our upper funnel opportunities. We can, of course, you measure reach and traffic, and we can also measure omni ROAS, but the ROAS just isn't as strong as a sponsored product or an on-site display or whatever the lower funnel offering is. So I think for us, the emphasis going forward is, like I said, continue to enhance the lower funnel opportunities, but mid-funnel for us, I think, is an exciting space. We launched an offsite ad center in partnership with Symbiosis last year, which gives our advertisers, particularly our smaller advertisers, the opportunity to self-service build mid-funnel campaigns. So catching that customer when they're in that mode of looking for inspiration, looking for discovery, and reaching our own audiences, bringing them back to Macy's, bringing them back to Bloomingdale's, and then being able to measure back with close-up measurement. So I think paid social, catching them in the mid-funnel, and then going to sort of mid to lower is the Google shopping opportunity. So through our offsite ad center, our advertisers have the ability to execute those Google PLA campaigns, which can also run in coordination with what our enterprise is doing to support a brand or a category. So there's a little bit of a partnership opportunity there for advertisers to compete on the Google digital shelf and bring that customer back to Macy's.
So,
I'm just going to add one other thing. I think as practicing marketers as well, I think you've really got to think about actually what is the funnel today, because the funnel is really being collapsed at every single point, right? I can show a consumer an ad on Reddit and get the consumer to click. They weren't even in market for a particular product. I can get them, they've even gone into they haven't even talked about upper funnel. I can get them to click on that ad and purchase that product in 2 clicks. Right, the funnel is changing, the way and the dynamic of the consumer is changing. The way in which we see that consumer engaging in the store environment, they will come in for a product and we will help them discover other products while they're in that environment. That's no funnel. There's no consideration in that. We've gone from upper funnel right the way through to transaction in one visit, in a 7-minute visit, in and out. So just think a little differently about, my challenge is think a little differently about the funnel. Think about the way in which the consumer behaves today. Think about your own behavior, right? Because we behave, we behave very differently, at different times of the day, as well as different environments that we're in.
So I just want to talk a little bit about metrics and measuring. How are you providing different metrics for brands? Because I know that we talked about this like a couple of years ago, right? That is like there's no standardization in the industry. Like there's a lot of issues around that in the very beginning. How are we like solving for that?
Well, our philosophy is to offer as much transparency as we can, as real time as we can. So for most of our offerings, we offer performance dashboards that are fully accessible to our advertisers. So like I said, there's no fuzzy math. It's right there in the platform. And we're constantly evolving. I think our advertisers are becoming more and more critical. And as all the competitive retail media networks around us evolve their measurement offering, we've got to keep on upping our game. So we're launching this year MTA analysis for our bigger partners, for our JBP partners. That's a partnership with TransUnion, multi-touch attribution. So that'll be something that'll be rolling out to market this year. And that will give us a lens into incrementality, pathway to conversion, time to conversion. headroom analysis. So some of these metrics that our advertisers have been asking for a long time, we'll be able to bring to the table. So we're looking forward to that. And I would say we just keep on enhancing what we have. I think, our share of voice reporting will continue to fine tune. And I think the big unlock, and I think what advertisers are mostly looking for, at least in my world, is finding the intersection between retail media metrics and retail metrics. So how we bring those two things together, how we move from a world of just talking about attributed sales and maybe the capability to measure incremental sales to how does that correlate to what an advertiser is seeing with their comm business or their omni business.
Yeah.
And so really getting smarter about that, which again then necessitates the need for more cross-functional partnership with site merchandising, site analytics. But we're figuring that out, and it's a lot of manual work now, and trying to move to more automation in the future.
Yeah, I think the conversation up until now has been that there are no metrics, but there are metrics and there are standardizations across the industry. The IAB have published standardization metrics for everybody and every retailer to follow. The challenge is that not all retailers follow those metrics. They want to create their own. They have their own reasons as to why they want to create them. That's their problem. That's not where we sit. We're exactly in Michael's camp, which is we provide a level of transparency in the way in which we report every single day. Because if you don't provide that level of transparency, you don't create trust in the medium. If you don't create trust in the medium, then you're not going to accelerate the growth and see the kind of growth that the industry is seeing. So the IAB standardization metrics have been in place. They're not just there for digital, that they're also there for in-store as well. We're the first health and wellness retail media network to adopt those standards. I push for other retail media networks to follow exactly the same. They're difficult. They're difficult to follow, right? It's not easy to get the business to that level of standard. But if we're to compete with the big advertising industry platforms, if that's where we really want to be, and that's where we believe growth is going to come from, well then you've got to be able to adopt standardization, and you've got to hold yourself accountable for the way in which you report on your metrics. And in terms of metrics, we offer attributed ROAS, which is based on attribution of our 90 million extra care consumers. So that's our platform, our user base that we've built our business upon. We offer incrementality, and we use holdout groups for our incrementality metrics and provide true iROAS. We also provide now reporting methodology for in-store as well for the screens that we use. So we want to lead the charge around this, and whenever we look at metrics and metrics for measurement, we want to look at metrics for measurement across the entire omni-channel. Because what often happens is that the consumer, certainly within the CVS consumer, they will start their journey in a digital environment and complete it in a physical environment. We have over 52% of our consumers who are starting digitally and saying, hey, I need a product and I need it now, and I'm going to go into a store in order to make that purchase, because there's a store that has that product in stock and I can walk there. Or normally, if you live in and around this part, there's normally 5 stores within spitting distance of where you're at. So that's what we're really focused on, is identifying the consumer across the entire omnichannel. We have the ability to do that. There's not many retail media networks that can, because of the extra care data set that we have. The loyalty program, customers are swiping both digitally as well as physically, so we have that through line. And then obviously just making sure, and I push the industry pretty hard on this, which is we must have standardization across the board, and everybody must adhere to those, because that's the only way in which we're going to grow together.
Well, in the interest of time, we have one more question, and I like to look future forward. So what are you guys most excited about, and what's the new innovation or capability that you think is going to change retail media in the next year or so?
I think it's this, at least in my world, which is, Macy's, we sell everything you might need across so many different categories. I think it's this connectivity that is happening in our organization. It's the ability to tell a story about a brand or about a category and really form a connection with our customers across many different touch points. And whether that happens through owned and operated channels in our stores with our store operations and merchandising teams or through paid through Macy's Media Network, I think it has to tell that one holistic story to nurture the customer towards conversion. And our hope at Macy's is that we build a long-term relationship with that customer. We develop a retained customer that we derive lifetime value from for a very long time. So that's our goal. But I think at the same time, we do have to, as Parv said, the funnel is flattened. And so we need to also be there in the lower funnel to catch that customer right in the moment, right when they're in market for that product. So I think that's an exciting part of the evolution too.
Yeah.
Yeah, the through line here and the foundational way in which we look at about our business is how do we just continue to build better products, right? That's always in our DNA, and we're very innovative as a business in order to drive that through. The two things that I would say that build upon that we're really bullish on this year are number one, the co-creation and collaboration. Who are the partners that we want to work with in order to extend the way in which we can speak with the CVS consumer and bring them back into the CVS environment? So obviously we announced Reddit last week, and again, there'll be more to come over sort of the course of the next couple of months on who else we announce. The second thing that we're really bullish on is how do we actually bring the in-store environment to life? We've been deploying screens at waiting area or trend caps. We've got a deployment of screens that are going to happen at the front of the store in around about 300 stores by the end of this year. We're looking at POSs and bringing an ad environment to that as well. But store traffic is where the vast majority of our consumers are. We've got close to 5 million consumers coming through our doors every single day. That is an area that we are very, very bullish around, and we have the support of the business in order to drive that through, and I think is a real big differentiator for the 9,000 CVS locations that we have, and actually a differentiator within the business, within the entire retail media network business as well.
I think it's such an exciting space. Thank you both so much for being here with me today.